Tonight on Arisen Strength, the motivational podcast, we have a special guest. Her name is Julie Ryan from Chronic Illness Bloggers. So let's get to it because your time is right now.
You know I can't recall the day your dream became my life. I've lived an eternity with you by my side. You by my side. Like the sun and the moon I've seen, that your light reflects mine. And riding together we have conquered the skies. But for so long I failed to see the truth as I searched for a fantasy that lived within you. Said, how did you know that you'd be my angel when your wings were trapped into my heart? Where did you see that we would be wonderful and our dreams would live where we are?
Hello, I'm Shane Schultz, and this is the Arisen Strength Motivational Podcast. Folks, we do this show because we feel there are far too many dreams, talents, and capabilities that are being suppressed for whatever reason. Whether it be injury, illness, or life experiences, these are situations that find us being robbed of what it is that makes us special and unique in this world, and that's our passions. Here at Arisen Strength, we encourage people to pursue their passions in spite of the challenges they face. Now, how we do that is with our three-pillar concept. Number one, we support. Number two, we empower. And after all that work, number three, we have the right to celebrate. Folks, that's the Arisen Strength concept. Our goal is to help you be more than the challenges you face. But I don't do this show on my own. I do it with my good friend. His name is Wayne the Hack Hacker. Hey, Wayne, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great now that I got things taken care of. I didn't tell you this story yet, so you're hearing this for the first time. Uh-oh. My adventure with my new cell phone. Okay. I hinted at to you a couple days ago. I said I had to make a run to the mall.
Yes.
Okay, I don't like going to the mall. I don't like going out at night. You know, those are a couple of my issues that I deal with. But I got a new phone in the mail on Thursday, and I was installing the SIM card into it. And I was trying to push the SIM card in, push the SIM card in, push the SIM card in, and it wasn't going in. There was something blocking it. And there was like a little thing in there that popped out that was blocking it. It's like, oh, okay, that popped that out. Now I slipped the SIM card in there. Well, the thing that popped out was actually a little tray that you put the SIM card into before you put it back in. So the SIM card went in.
Oh, no.
And it was like, there's a phone where you slide the SIM card into the side. There's no way to open it and take the battery out or anything like that. I was like, oh my God. So I had to go to the mall. I guess I could have gone probably a lot of different places, but here, go to the mall, to the store, and let them help me deal with it. But for me to go to the mall, it's 3 buses. It takes 2 hours each way. And this happened like right before I was eating dinner. I was angry. I was frustrated. I was mad, kind of at my foolishness. And my normal thing would have been to sort of shut down and not worry about it for a while. But I thought, okay, this is something I got to get done. It's going to be a big project. It's going to take the rest of my night. I like to go to bed at 9 o'clock, and there was no way I was going to bed at 9 o'clock here. And then even there was an adventure at the mall. But the long and short of it was I got it done. It took about 5.5 hours between the So I got home about 11 o'clock at night. It was like 10:45. And, I was normally go to bed at 9. So that was Thursday night. I was, and even still, I was up till about midnight trying to settle down, calm myself down. And Friday, I took the day and just, it was like an emotionally drained day. I just, wow. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was just spent. So that was a big adventure Thursday night.
You definitely used all the pillars and foundations of Arisen Strength on that day.
Yeah, definitely. It was actually do it. Because that was the thing. And that was the empowering piece. That really is. It's just, you know what? We say it all the time. Do what you can when you can. As angry as I was, as frustrated as I was at myself and my willingness, or unwillingness to go outside when it's going to be dark. And I know this was going to be a long night. Put all that aside. That, you know what? This is something I can do. I really can do this. And stop saying can't, Wayne. Stop, saying, I can't go out at night. I can't go to the mall. I can't, just do it. So that really was ringing in my ears, was do what I can when I can and to kick the can't. And I did it. It got done. The advantage was that night even I had a phone.
Yeah, kick the camp, baby, and see what happens. That is pretty amazing because I do know you very well, and I know that there were definitely days and years to where that would never have happened. That would have been still on the table, basically just waiting for somebody else to say, what's going on with your phone over there? And then you would say, I got to go somewhere to go get something new on it and everything like that, but I just don't feel like doing it right now. So kudos to you for using Arisen Strength. Like we say, folks, we use these things. We use the pillars and foundations in so many different ways. And so when we decided to bring them to you in order to be able to help you with your different challenges and struggles that are out there in life, we really meant it.
I mentioned the Empower, but another one that we use a lot is support. I mean, I know you and I, we do a lot of supporting of each other, giving each other tips, hints to get us out there and doing more, take advantage of our capabilities. As you say, to be more than we can be and not just stay isolated in our own little closed circle, an echo chamber. Sometimes they come across people who are, they feel like they're doing something, but they're not making any progress. They're not reaching outside their own world. But I think we do a good job with each other of like encouraging the other person, get out and try to do something new, try to do something different, and be open. That's a big part of it. And, that was led to a lot to my weight loss, do something different. Mm-hmm. If you keep doing the same thing that you're always doing, you keep getting the same results. Why beat myself up over the same results when I know that I'm doing the same thing every time? If I can change the things I'm doing, maybe I can change my results. And going to the mall that night, that was something new. That was something different. And I got a different result. I got my phone taken care of the same day that messed it up. But I was getting so frustrated trying to jam that SIM card in there that when the little tray popped out, it was like, there was like a false relief. It was like, oh, finally, now it'll fit in there. It wasn't thinking that, I need to put the card into this little tray and put it back in. I just shoved it right in there and it was, and and then in the instant I did it, I knew I had messed it up. At that point it was like,
be careful what you ask for type of thing.
Yeah. So.
Well, I got to tell you, speaking of support, you've been very supportive of me and the things that I do, and you've been tremendously supportive of what it is that I've been going through, whether it be medically or mentally. And recently, I had a doctor appointment of which, I got to tell you, you talk about getting the same result over and over and over again. It seems as if every time I leave the house, I go and I'm like, all right, hopefully we'll come up with a little bit different answer than what it is that we already know. And man, I come back to the house and still know the same answer that I always knew. I mean, I went to a doctor appointment and get this. Now, my specialist the orthopedic specialist sent me to this guy. And the reason why is because, to make a long story as short as I can, the bottom line is I have a neck injury. But what's happening is that one of the nerves is compressed. Because of that is that my right arm, my dominant arm, is severely compromised. My right hand is almost not usable to the point without extreme pain. So we're sitting there and we're looking at all the MRIs. I've taken 6 different MRIs. I've taken 3 different nerve stimulation tests. I've taken x-rays and everything in this. And the doctor is just clearly befuddled. He can't figure this out. And so he's looking at it from the standpoint of, okay, this is not a pain management issue. This is now a functioning issue because my hand is cramping up so badly. And not only am I in pain, but I can't use it. So what he decided is, he goes, Dutch, let's go ahead and check to see if we're missing something with the arm. So he sent me to the specialist in regards to the arm. And I had I think I talked about this last week, as to where I had an MRI that was specified for my arm. I literally had to hold my arm out for an hour to where it was out straight as if I look like Right Turn Clyde from Any Which Way But Loose, the orangutan. And I'm sitting there and I was like that for an hour. Well, fast forward to this appointment, I go in and I'm seeing this surgeon with regards to my arm. And he comes walking in and the first thing that he says is, "What are you doing here?" Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I certainly didn't come to just visit the doctor just to say hi, right? It wasn't my idea to go see this guy. It was the other specialist that referred me to see him. And, you know, it's not like the old days as to where you could go and you could see whatever doctor that you want to see. Now you need a referral from somebody, either your general practitioner or your specialist that you're dealing with. I'm kind of taken back and I'm like, what the hell do you think I'm doing here for? And I thought that he was kind of joking. And he's like, really, I'm being serious. He says, we've told you a number of times, there's nothing wrong with your arm. And now we just did an MRI that was not cheap in any way to tell you there's nothing wrong with your arm. And so that kind of got me into a little bit of a different state of mind, because now it's like, oh, I'm costing you now, as opposed to this whole thing is costing me, right? So now you're getting into, I think you mentioned willingness, and I think that you kind of slipped and said willfulness. We ought to go over that someday, but willfulness and willingness, I definitely became willful real quick. When I say willful, I mean everything that was going to be detrimental, to the point as to where I was about ready to go to blows with this surgeon. And so anyway, so he sits down and he's like, you could not pay me enough to do surgery on your arm because there's nothing wrong with it. And again, I'm looking at him with three different heads and I'm saying, what in the world makes you think that I want to have surgery on my arm? Because I certainly don't. I'm the one that keeps telling everybody that it's a neck injury. I did not hurt my elbow. Can anybody hear me? I did not hurt my elbow. I went to sleep, I woke up, and I ended up this way. Now, yes, I had a PTSD moment. Yes, I moved in a certain way of which I have no idea how I did that or what I did or anything like that. But I can tell you here and now, I did not hurt my elbow. I know what hurts my elbow is all about. I've had 4 broken arms. I mean, I've broken my arm 4 times. I know what it feels like, okay? So I just cannot for the life of me figure out how it is that when I say I have a neck injury and it's proven in the MRI and in every test that we do, yet I cannot get an answer or some cooperation to where somebody can help me to where I don't feel pain every day that I breathe on this given moment. I mean, it's like 24/7. And now my neck is hurting more than what it was before. So it's not getting better. Coming back to what Arisen Strength is all about, I got to understand they're doing the best that they can for me. But at the same time, I also have to be, right? I have to be assertive. I have to get on the same page with these people. And I have to say, listen, we are done with the arm. You mention the arm one more time, I'm walking right out the damn door. Because it's been proven there's nothing wrong with my arm as far as why it is that it's being as compromised as it is. Here's the thing. A lot of people are out there going through the exact same thing that I'm going through. A lot of people are out there going through the illness that they're going through the injury that they're going through. They're going to doctors. And here, and we had this discussion with Ken McKim. And I mentioned how the fact that, you know, the way that it's conveyor belt treatment right now, because a doctor will come in and take the exact same amount of time and look at somebody who has a sprained ankle and take the exact same amount of time at somebody who has a nerve injury. And that's ridiculous. It's not even close to being fair, but that's the bottom line. That's why you need more than ever to be on the same page with your doctor. And it kind of fits well with our guest tonight, which is Julie Ryan with Chronic Illness Bloggers. What'd you think of the interview with Julie?
She's really good. You know, she's a big fan of the spoon theory. You know, and we'll go into the spoon theory in the interview. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners have heard of the spoon theory and people referring themselves as spoonies. And she definitely does consider herself a spoonie. Her personal blog is Counting My Spoons. So it's right there in her title. Her Chronic Illness Bloggers is a really great network of bloggers of people who suffer from chronic pain, you know, and she's bringing them together. She talks about that and the sense of community and awareness, you know, just getting results from activism and awareness. And it's really, really inspirational. And she's a great story. And I really did enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Julie is a great friend of mine. And we plan on working with her quite a bit from here on out. So why don't we just get to the interview and let it talk for itself?
Sounds great.
Awesome. I am here with a good friend of mine. Her name is Julie Ryan from Counting My Spoons and Chronic Illness Bloggers. Hey, how are you, Julie?
Doing all right today.
Okay, that is awesome. That's a good start. So you are somebody who I have followed quite a bit, especially on LinkedIn. And I noticed that you have quite a blog going on, whether it be your individual blog or your network. So let's start with you. How is it that you came about being involved in blogging?
I've kind of always blogged to some degree. So back in the day, I had LiveJournal and used that to share with friends. And even before that, I had, something on a website that I had pretty much coded myself. And when I got sick in 2010, I realized that my LiveJournal was kind of being taken over by my health. And I didn't want it to overwhelm my friends with that if it wasn't something that they wanted to, constantly hear about. So that was where I decided to just go ahead and set up a separate blog and went to Blogger and created Counting My Spoons and blogged there just kind of as I found things that were helpful or just to kind of share what I was dealing with or, what I was trying at that point. And it just kind of grew from there and eventually, became countingmyspoons.com. I blog twice a week and usually try to share something kind of inspirational or helpful on Mondays. I call it like extra spoons. And then on Fridays, I try to share something that's kind of more educational or like a product review or something like that for people. And, my focus there is generally towards fibromyalgia and migraines, kind of people who live with chronic pain in general.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, because when you start mentioning the word spoons, especially in the social networking, often it means something about chronic illness or chronic pain. So you just mentioned that you deal with fibromyalgia, but there's also a couple other things that you go with, right?
Yeah, I call it the Costco wholesale pack of chronic illness. Let's see, fibromyalgia, migraines, endometriosis, thyroid disorder, cluster headaches, IBS, TMJ. I feel like I should be a doctor with all these letters after my name or something. I don't know. There's probably something that I forget. The spoons thing, it goes back to Christine Miserandino and her spoon theory that so many of us have adopted as a good way to explain what it's like to live with the varying, levels of energy and stuff that comes with chronic illness. It applies to a lot of those things.
So when you said the spoon theory from Christine Miserandino, you really are fond of her, aren't you? You have mentioned her quite a bit in our talks as well as on your blog and everything. What do you attribute Christine's theory in helping what it is that you're doing now?
Well, it's obviously the inspiration for what I've done. It's where my blog title came from. And I feel that because it is where my blog title came from, it's really important to make sure that people know that that's where it comes from. Every once in a while, I get somebody who comes to my blog and they think that I'm the one who created the spoon theory. And, I always try to make it very clear that, I didn't write it. I just live it and adopted it just like so many of us have. I don't ever want there to be confusion and stuff. Christine I don't know her well. I know her a little bit from online and really only met her online like about a year ago. So before that, I had never actually been able to make a connection. And it was one of those things I always wanted to do because of how much her spoon theory impacted me. Because she wrote that, a very important person within the spoonie community. We all help each other in different ways. So while she's not as active in things now as she used to be, her spoon theory is going to live on long after she's gone.
So why don't you help some of our audience out here? What exactly is the spoon theory? I know that there are quite a few of my audience that know exactly what it is, but there are some that are out there learning about chronic illness and chronic disease and so forth. So what is the spoon theory?
The spoon theory is kind of an analogy that Christine came up with for trying to explain what it's like to live with variable energy. So she's, in a diner with a friend and trying to explain this whole thing. And she lives with lupus. So her friend, kind of asked her what it felt like to have lupus and to be sick. So she's sitting there trying to explain it and starts talking and whatnot. And finally she looks around and sees the spoons on the table. And so she, runs around to all the tables and grabs all the spoons and, said to her friend, this is all the spoons you have in a day. The spoons, represent your energy. For you, you have unlimited spoons. Like this amount of spoons in my hand is enough for you to get through the day, and you're probably going to have some left over. But for me, I might take a shower and that's going to be 3 spoons. Just getting out of bed is 2 spoons. Making breakfast, that's 2 more spoons or whatever. And then, by the time lunchtime rolls around, you don't have any spoons left. It's just a really good analogy. There's others out there, like the idea of a phone battery, draining, and how some apps drain it so much faster than others. So there's different ways to describe it. It's just that happened to be the first one that I heard. And at the time, I was having such a difficult time even explaining what I was going through, especially to my husband, who didn't remotely understand why I could barely get off the couch some days, or why there were days when I pulled up in front of the building to go to my class and I'm like, I can't even get out of the car now. Like, I just couldn't imagine having to get out of the car and walk to that building. That's kind of what it is. And I recommend Googling and just going and reading the actual spoon theory to get the full impact of it.
Yeah, definitely. And that is a very cool theory. And a lot of people are using it. It's unique to be able to educate people. And I think that that's pretty cool. I'm reading your blog, and this is something that really caught me from the first time that I read it. It says, these days, I don't spend a lot of time counting on my spoons or worrying about how many I have. I listen to my body, and it tells me when I'm running low, so I slow down. That's not very easy to do sometimes, is it?
No, and it's something that takes a lot of practice. I've had people at times, they're like, I keep hearing this listen to my body thing, but I don't understand what that means. To me, what it means is when I'm tired, I stop. When I feel like my body's starting to shut down, I don't keep pushing. And I think that's the mistake that a lot of us make, is that we continue to push even as our body's literally telling us, I need to stop. When we can actually stop when the body says so and rest, then we can get back up and do more. Whereas the more we push through when the body's saying stop, the longer it's going to take to recover and the harder it's going to be. So instead of continually pushing through, day after day when the body says it's time to go to bed, staying up all night, or whatever, it is that you're doing, I've learned certain things. Like, I've learned that it's best for me to be in bed by 9:30 at night, and I'm going to be in bed until at least 8 o'clock in the morning. And some people think I'm crazy because they're like, how are you in bed, 11, 12 hours a night? I'm not necessarily sleeping that whole time, but I'm resting, and I do get a reasonable amount of sleep within that time period. But if I stayed up till 1 o'clock in the morning, like, my old night owl self would have liked to have done, even if I slept till 9 or 10 the next day, I'd still be worn out and tired because I pushed so far, and I wouldn't have gotten as much sleep during that period. And, the same thing goes, there's mornings where I wake up and I'm just like, yeah, today it's just not going to happen. I look at my computer and I'm like, I can't even focus on what it is I'm supposed to be reading. I can't get through a 3-line email. It's like, okay, I can't do it. I'm just going to close the computer. I'm not going to get any work done today. It's okay. And, then I focus on self-care and resting. And, whether that's just sitting here watching Netflix or whatever it happens to be. And I know that by doing that, the next day I'm going to be fine and I'm going to make up for it. I'm going to be able to get the work done that I maybe missed, or whatever that situation may be. And sometimes it's just, it starts the day like that. But then by, 1 or 2 o'clock, I'm like, okay, I'm doing a little better now. I can get up and focus and get some work done. So it's just that type of understanding what your body is saying and not resisting it.
Wow, that's pretty intuitive, because you're actually looking into what it is that's going on. I'm a big proponent that the body knows when something's not altogether right. It lets us know in some different way, whether it be inflammation, whether it be some sort of ache, whether it be some sort of slowing down, whatever it is, it lets you know in some way. And you are obviously very in tune with what it is that's going on. And that takes some time, doesn't it? It's not something that just comes to you right away. It's something that you have to kind of learn and then adapt to, right?
Yeah, it's definitely not something we automatically do, because I think society as a whole has kind of trained us that you just go. And, there is no stop button. There is no self-care. There's no rest. Society looks at us as the more you sleep that you're just being lazy, or people who sleep less somehow get more done, all these things. And it's just not true. You can push forever. I could work for 12 hours. But I'm probably not going to get more than 4 hours worth of work done in that, because I'm not really 100% focused. I don't have the full energy to do it. All those things. Think about going to any regular job, most regular jobs anyway, you're there for 8 hours. But when you think about how many times you're interrupted during the day, or you're having a conversation, or you're distracted, or you're doing this or that, you're probably not getting 8 hours of work done. You're probably getting maybe 4. So by slowing down and really focusing and being mindful of what you're doing, you can get a lot more done in any period of time, and at the same time be aware of what's going on. So I do a lot with my time, but I don't necessarily work 40 hours a week. I work what my body allows. And sometimes that's 20 hours. Sometimes it might be 40. But I get more done. And even there's days where I might work 2 hours and I walk away feeling like I don't know how I did all the stuff that I did in that time, but it was because I was focused and mindful and kind of in tune with what was going on rather than just allowing myself to be distracted by everything. And that kind of goes to the listening to your body thing too. So many times we're distracted by everything else and we're focused on the million and one things we need to get done or we feel we need to get done. 9 times out of 10, we don't need to do all the things that we think we need to do. But when we slow down and instead of focusing outward on all those things, we focus inward on what our body is saying and how we actually feel about what's going on, then we can be much more productive and actually hear what the body is saying and do what needs to be done so that we can do what we think needs to be done later.
Wow. You are definitely using the foundations of Arisen Strength because the foundations are to take ownership of you. And folks, I don't know if you hear it or not, but Julie is definitely taking ownership of her body. She's taking ownership of her mindset, of what it is that she's doing. She's taking ownership of her recovery day by day with what it is that she goes through. There's going to be days as to where she feels better than others. There's going to be those days as to where she's not going to be able to feel like she's going to be able to get anything done. But she is in tune with what those days are and what that means for her to do. So she's taking ownership. Another thing that clearly what you talk about is also the power of turning the thought. It's real easy to get into a rut or a drought where if somebody is constantly tired or constantly in pain or whatever the case may be, they can very easily fall into this continuous cycle of feeling that way, this continuous where you're enabling your pain even more so, or you're enabling your misery even more so. And what you've done is that you looked at it from a little bit different angle to get a little bit more of possibility. And that was, well, yeah, I could work 12 hours straight and get 4 hours work done, or I could work 4 hours and get full 4 hours done. So you're looking at things from a different standpoint, right? And then obviously you've got the big one, which is the freedom of acceptance, which I don't know, that is like going in blinkety, blink, blink, blink and neon with you because you're accepting the fact that, hey, look, I don't like it. I don't care for it. But the bottom line is that I'm dealing with what it is that I'm dealing with. We have to accept that, right? Doesn't mean that it's going to be forever, but for right now, that's what it is. And here's what it is that I need to do in order to be able to manage my day as best as I can to do what I can when I can. And that's really what it is that you do and what it is that you just talked about.
Yeah, it's not easy by any means.
No, there's no question about that. I agree. Okay, so how did everything start for you? I mean, you have fibromyalgia, but you got a whole other lot of different things, which is not unusual, folks. I know that there's a lot of people out there who don't deal with chronic illness or deal with chronic pain. And when they keep on hearing somebody say, oh my God, I've got this going on. Oh my God, I got that going on. Or if they run down a list of what it is that they go through, they kind of become judgmental and say, there's no way in the world that you have all of those things. But really, Julie, that's not unusual, is it? It's usual for somebody to kind of accumulate different conditions as they go along.
Yeah, I mean, all of these illnesses that come up are what they call comorbid, as in they tend to happen together. For me, it started with migraines when I was a kid. I had them off and on, and I think looking back, the fibromyalgia has probably been there since maybe even my late teens. When I was in high school, I had mono. And after that, it was kind of whenever I would get really stressed or overworked or, just didn't sleep enough, I would kind of crash. Like I could come home from work at 5 and sleep till 5 the next day sometimes. So looking back at things like that, or remembering times where maybe somebody sat too close to me or, grabbed my arm what felt like too tight, and I said something and they just kind of looked at me like I was crazy. Before I was diagnosed with fibro, one of the things that kept coming up was, and I thought this was normal, that I would sit next to somebody and it was like I could feel their energy. I think that really kept me on edge for a long time until I got that taken care of. But in 2008, I ended up with TMJ, and that aggravated the migraine. So I ended up with like a 2-month-long migraine that nobody could figure out until we realized it was TMJ. I was getting that treated and was just getting to the point where I was getting back to kind of normal life, and then got hit with some sort of something like a week-long, what felt like the flu. After that, I just kind of never recovered and kind of started feeling worse and worse, had this like stabbing pain in my head, and just one thing after another that finally led to both the fibromyalgia and the cluster headache diagnosis. and that was 2010. Then the endometriosis. In 2012, I finally kind of got a handle on the fibromyalgia after like 2 years of dealing with all the medications that just kept seeming to make me feel worse, and in one case landed me at the ER. And so I was like to the point where I was just willing to try anything, and finally stepped out and said, okay, let's look at diet. I kept hearing occasionally, oh, you should stop eating gluten, stop eating eggs, stop eating dairy, all these things. And I just kind of looked at them like they were crazy. And then I saw a documentary called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, where Joe Cross basically juiced for like 6 months and was able to reverse an autoimmune issue. And so I'm like, if he can do that for 6 months, I can try it for 6 days or whatever. So at the beginning of 2012, I started the year with like 5 days of just juicing, and then reintroduced fruits and vegetables, and then slowly introduced other foods. And around the same time, I'd had a food sensitivity test done. But before we even got the panel back, it was like we could see just a huge difference in my energy levels, and my pain levels had dropped off. When the test came back, it showed very low levels of sensitivity for gluten, dairy, or not really dairy, but gluten, whey, eggs, and yeast. It was so low that the pharmacist was like, I don't even think it would affect you. I'm like, well, something's affecting me. And obviously not having these things in my diet seems to be helping me. So I continued to stay away from those and was hugely better, like returned to normal life pretty much. And then 6 months or so later, I started having this abdominal pain and started doing the circle of doctors that we do sometimes to try to find a diagnosis. And nobody could find anything. And finally somebody suggested endometriosis. And so we did a surgery for that and found out I had stage 3 endometriosis. There's 4 stages. And my doctor who originally did the surgery was like, it's the worst I've ever seen. She's, a baby delivery doctor, not so much a endometriosis surgery doctor. She couldn't even remove it all. So I had to do another surgery 6 months later. I'm actually having surgery again for that in like a week. That's kind of been the trajectory of everything. And overall, these last 4 years, I guess now, I've been really pretty healthy. I mean, I still have occasional bad days. I still definitely have migraines. I just know I have to listen to my body. I have days, like I said, where I wake up and I'm just not going to be able to do much. But I know that the next day I'm going to be okay. It doesn't last. It's not like, a full-on flare where it's going to go on for days and days unless it's instigated by something else, like an injury or a surgery or something like that.
She is Julie Ryan from Counting My Spoons and Chronic Illness Bloggers, and we'll be right back. Hey everybody, it's Shane Schultz, the founder of the Speaking the Heart Radio Network. Hey, make sure to join my good friend Russ McCreary on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time as he brings you Painfully Optimistic. If you're dealing with pain, whether it be physically or mentally, this show will help you know life's more than pain. That's Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the Speaking the Heart Radio Network. And we are back here on Arisen Strength Motivational Podcast, and we're talking with Julie Ryan of Counting My Spoons and Chronic Illness Bloggers. And I got to tell you, I was reading this, Julie, on your blog as well, and it really does resonate with me because it's all about Arisen Strength. Because you say, my journey started with TMJ and turned into fibromyalgia, endometriosis, and thyroid issue. I've also got cluster headaches, chronic migraines to deal with, but that's not who I am. That's just what I live with. I'm so much more than my illness. That is all about Arisen Strength. And you also are doing something quite astounding, and that is that you're running a network of blogging. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about that?
chronicillnessbloggers.com. I started that just about a year ago. And what it was, I had finally been able to go back to school and finish my degree and, bachelor in psychology. And my goal initially was do a master's and do counseling and stuff. But after my last semester, listening to my body, I realized that just wasn't going to happen. It wasn't realistic. My background prior to all that is marketing, and specifically online marketing. So trying to look at how I could create an income with what I have. Obviously my blog is there. I do a lot of freelance writing that, has come out of my blog. And I've had some connections to some really great companies through my blog. But when I just look at my blog, I'm very limited to literally what I can do with that. And as I looked around, I knew that it wasn't just me. Like I see my blogger friends and they're kind of in the same boat. We're all struggling and we're trying to make the best that we can despite our chronic illness. Looked at other blogger networks that were out there to try to, find opportunities for like sponsored posts or product reviews and things. And most of what was out there just really didn't fit the focus of my blog or the other, chronic illness blogs. And there was wasn't a community anywhere that I'd found for those of us who have chronic illness and who blog. So decided that was something that was needed and kind of began to test it, put together a little Facebook group and brought in the people that I knew and had them bring in others and just to kind of see what kind of interest there was. And we grew to about 100 bloggers within just a couple of weeks. At the same time, I reached out to some of the companies that I already worked with and kind of asked them, if they were interested in something like that. And the instant response was, very definite yes. So chronic illness bloggers kind of grew out of that. And we've now got about 460 bloggers in the network. And we've worked with about 40 different companies to promote products that are, for the most part, very specific to the chronic illness community. We do that through product reviews and sponsored posts. So it's allowed me to provide opportunities to other bloggers and to create something of my own that can create an income for myself at the same time.
That's pretty impressive. That is pretty impressive. One thing that I got to say, folks, we just went down a list of things of what it is that Julie is ailed by or has been ailed by throughout her lifetime. And yet it's really showing out here that she's all about realizing, yes, I deal with this, but that's not my life. I just deal with it. The rest of my life is yet to come type of thing. And so when you started this network of bloggers, which is really impressive, and quite a few of our guests who have been on Arisen Strength are part of it, one being a good friend of mine, Ken McKim, it's really, really impressive to have not only a network of bloggers, but you're also combining corporate businesses to those bloggers to be able to get them recognized as well as to be able to maybe make an income for themselves while they're dealing with their particular illness at that given moment.
Yeah, and that's really the goal. I mean, I'm just kind of a facilitator. I'm the person in the middle. My background is sales and marketing, so it's not difficult for me to get on the phone and talk to these companies. And knowing that I have really a great network of bloggers makes that really easy too, because I can get on the phone easily and say, you know what, we've got this amazing group of bloggers, and I know that I can provide you a service that, that has great value. And for a lot of these companies, they've spent countless hours out there scouring the internet and Googling and trying to find blogs that fit their specific product to reach out to those bloggers and get them to try the product or get them to, write about it or whatever. And so many times those emails fall on deaf ears, or they're just so overwhelmed that when the blogger, responds back, they can't get back and forth. And so there tends to be a lot of loss there. It's a huge time suck for the business. And for the bloggers, they don't necessarily know, who to trust. Honestly, there's so many things out there that we look at and we're like, I don't think that's necessarily a good idea. And I try to vet things as they come through. There's products where I look at them and I don't feel it's a good fit, and we don't go down that road, because if my goal was strictly, I want to make money, then I would just take everything that came through and throw them at whatever blogger was willing to review it. But that's not the goal. The goal is to help both sides, to make sure that everybody comes out a winner. There's times where people review products and they're not happy with them, and that's okay. Not every product is for every person, but for the most part, every product that we've had come through has been very successful, and it's been something that the majority of the bloggers who took a look at it were very happy with. That makes me happy, and then hearing from the bloggers, how much they've gained from being part of it. I got an email just today that made me smile like so big from my friend Lydia, where she says, have I told you how good being a part of your network has been for me? I'm finally living my dream and helping people at the same time. I mean, how big of a smile did I have when I read that? I mean, hell, I'm starting to tear up right now just reading it out loud.
So, you can't get better than that, can you?
No. And, that's the kind of thing you want in life. You want to be able to help people, and that makes me know that I'm doing the right thing.
Well, that's why I call living life with purpose, because I could very easily turn the things that I do and say, okay, this is a business, and you want to know something? I probably would have walked away from it a long time ago. Because if you're talking about business aspects, because there's different parameters and definitions of what business is. And if business is to where you're making a lot out of doing a little, you're in the wrong business. That's just not going to happen. And when I started calling what it is that I do a purpose to myself, and I started living life with a purpose, that's when things started changing around. That's when things started opening up just on its own. No, I don't make $1 million off of what it is that I do. I know a lot of people seem to think that I do in some ways, but no, that's not the case. I am on disability, just like a whole lot of people who deal with chronic illness and chronic pain, as well as mental illness. I have a disability that I've been dealing with. The bottom line is, when you're actually doing something for more than just for the monetary reason, then all of a sudden things start opening up different. Then all of a sudden it starts feeling different. And for these people who are blogging in your network, you're giving them a purpose that otherwise they wouldn't have, right? Because most cases they would just be laying around thinking about what it is that ails them. And that's not to say anything bad about that person, because sometimes I got to tell you folks, the things that people go through, you got to end up laying around for a while, because that's just the bottom line. The body is saying, listen, I don't care what it is that you have planned. I need to lay down and I need to heal up in some way, before we do anything. That's just the way it is. I mean, you don't have to necessarily believe it, but that is the way it is. One thing that we try to do here on this show is that we bring inspiration through awareness and motivation. Well, we're talking about awareness here, right? Julie's bringing the motivation. I mean, she brings the motivation just by saying, hey, look, yes, I deal with this, but that's not my life. It's just part of what it is that I deal with. What I talk about is to bring that part of life a smaller percentage of our life. In other words, make everything else a little bit bigger so as to be able to make that smaller, to live life with purpose. And life is worth living, not just merely existing. This is what it is that we're talking about. Julie, I got to tell you, you're really doing a service for not only those who are in business, who are utilizing your network to get critiques and reviews on their products, but I mean, the bloggers are having a purpose of doing something, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I don't want to be misunderstood. I mean, these bloggers, I feel like they already had a purpose. Like, most of them are blogging because they want to help people. I can't say that I give them a purpose so much as maybe I do give them extra motivation to keep going and keep at it, to make things a little bit easier, because it would be really easy to get burnt out if you don't feel like enough people are reading your blog, or if you don't feel like you're getting anything back out of it. So I want to be able to make sure that they are getting something back out of it. And one of the big things with kind of the community aspect of our group is that we all help each other and we share each other's content. So, I have bloggers who come in and join and they have very little reach. Very few people are actually reading their blog when they come in, but because they actually take part in our community and share their stuff with each other, it starts getting shared out more and their numbers just grow. I love to see those numbers change, in dramatic ways. Know that it's going from something that, they had a passion and a purpose to begin with, but now they've got reason to keep doing it. They're not just going to get burnt out because they feel like nobody's listening.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that it's more an outlet for them, more of an outlet for their creativity, for their capability to reach more than what it is that they might have had in the past. So I agree with you. It's not that they didn't have a purpose in the first place, because everybody does. But the outlet that they now have by being on your network, it might be bringing them to areas that they might not have even thought of. Having possibilities add up in our life makes life worth living. And makes it life, much more than just what it is that we are ailed by. So what is next for Julie Ryan and the Chronic Illness Bloggers?
Keep doing what we're doing. I mean, we've managed to develop some amazing relationships with some of these companies. And kind of my focus this year has really been about not just bringing in new companies that are a good fit, but also continuing to work with some of the awesome ones that we have already come in contact with. So, one of the big things this year that we're looking at is we're doing a lot with this company, OSCA, that has a really great pain relief device. So we've done a couple of rounds of reviews with them, and we're going to do a few more. And, they're looking at us not just for product reviews, but, as an entry into the chronic pain community. So they're still a relatively new company. So we're going to have opportunities to maybe even get some of our bloggers out on national on television interviews and things like that because of this connection with them. That's the kind of connection that I want. I want things like that where they're looking and saying, what, we want to make this bigger than it is. We want to help. I want to connect with companies that are there to help people, not just companies who are there to try to make a buck.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's no doubt about it. You are doing things purposefully, and you are doing things in a way that, makes a difference. That's what Arisen Strength is all about. It's making a difference in our own lives and in others. Because when we talk about the things that we do here on this show, and we utilize the pillars and foundations, we haven't mentioned the pillars yet today, but the pillars are support unconditionally, empower to be more than the challenges that you face. And then after all that work, we have the right to celebrate. We have the right to reward ourselves. And what Julie's doing here with the Chronic Illness Bloggers and her own blog, Counting My Spoons, is pretty amazing. She is doing some things that a lot of people probably never even thought of doing, or they thought about doing it and they just thought it wasn't worth doing. but she's doing it and she's making a difference for a whole lot of people. Julie, it's been wonderful to have you here on the show. I hope to work with you again in the near future.
Definitely.
We can make a difference together.
Absolutely. I look forward to getting to talk to you again and maybe even trying to bring in some of the bloggers.
That'd be awesome. Make sure to join us next week as we have special guest Tom Exler from Courage to Shine. It's all about inspiration through awareness and motivation. This is a show you're not going to want to miss. You can learn more about the Arisen Strength Motivational Podcast at our website at arisenstrength.com. And remember, your time is now.
The sweetest moment of life I ever knew was when I opened my eyes and saw that you were my truth. Said, how did you know? How did you know? That you'd be my angel. When your wings were trapped into my heart. Where did you see? And where did you see? That we would be wonderful. And our dreams would live where we are. Trapped into my heart. Where did you see that we would be wonderful and our dreams would live where we are? How did you know that you'd be my angel when your wings were trapped into my heart? Where did you see that we would be wonderful and our dreams would live where we are? How did you know that you'd be my angel when your wings were trapped in my heart? Where did you see that we would be wonderful